In this two-part video series, we are going to be testing some of the top free expert advisors available on the MQL5 marketplace. In today's video, I'm going to go through and analyze the strategies in depth and tell you guys how they work. And then I'm going to put them all in an account for a full week to forward test them and then see how they perform. In a week from now, I'll come back and tell you guys how they've traded. Obviously, 1 week is not the longest trial period in the world, but it should be enough just to understand how the bots actually trade and to see if the real live trading performance matches the historical back-tested performance. And after this two-part video series, I should be able to give you guys a lot more information on some of these free bots, and it might be able to revolutionize your trading. So to start off, I went to the free tab here on the MQL5 marketplace, and I'm looking at some of the most popular ones. Specifically for this video, I'm not looking at indicators or tools. I'm only looking for the fully functioning expert advisors which can place trades on behalf of users. So specifically, some of the ones I'm looking at today are the Hedging Martingale, the Range Breakout EA, this is an indicator, the Dark Venus, and I'm also going to look at the Node Neural EA for MT5, because the rest of them here are just indicators, right? So that means 1, 2, 3, 4. So these would be the top 4 free expert advisors on the MQL5 marketplace, currently as of the 4th of October 2025. I'm also going to take our free expert advisor, which by now has several hundred users using it daily, and compare them all in a demo account. So now let's go through all of the different strategy pages one by one, just to give an overview of how these different bots perform, because they're all different styles, and based on your preferred style of trading, maybe you want to use a different one. And essentially, I'm going to test them all to see how exactly they perform, and if those styles are robust, and if they're stable effectively throughout the entire trial period. So now we're going to have the Dark Venus MT5 as our first bot. This one is probably the most famous free EA on the marketplace. It's been around forever. I think by now it's probably the most widely downloaded one. Marco's a good guy. I've emailed with him in the past. He seems like he's genuinely honest and cares about his customers. And we know that this bot in particular is more of a grid martingale. So this is a pretty high risk bot. It trades with a classic averaging in grid. So it can work, but it can also blow your account. Therefore, I'm curious to just run it on default settings on the euro dollar just to see how ultimately it goes. Because right now we're in a particularly volatile period with the US government shutdown. So I'm curious if we just run this during this kind of volatile geopolitical week, what's going to happen. So this is a very classic grid martingale style strategy. It's based on a Bollinger Band trigger, and as you guys know, or if you don't know what a grid martingale is it takes an initial position, and then if price goes against it, it opens additional positions in the same direction of the first position with an increasing lot size. So the simplest way of imagining that is, let's say, based on the Bollinger Band trigger, we go long at this level, but instead of price going up, price goes down. If price goes down by a certain distance, it will open a second position at double the lot size, and then a third position at double the lot size of the prior one. And the aim essentially is, if price eventually goes up a little bit, all the positions will close in a grid, and because you've been increasing the lot size, the last position will cover the losses of all of them, and you will end up essentially at break even or in a slight profit. This is the concept behind grid martingale. But as I'm sure you guys can imagine, if we keep going down and down and down and down and down, and we keep scaling the lot size, eventually we're going to blow through our margin and we're going to completely blow the account, because we would have used up essentially all the money which we have available. That's the downside. So this bot, it is what it is. People know this is a grid martingale. Just don't plop it in an account if you have no idea what this type of system does, because it does require a bit of monitoring and a bit of risk control if needed. So here, for instance, it does have a risk percentage. So you should always make sure, if you're not running it in a demo account, to use some sort of risk limit so as to not blow your account. The Node Neural EA for MT5. This thing, I believe, is also a grid martingale. It's a grid martingale on the euro dollar as well. And as we can see here, it clearly is trading some sort of averaging in position, but I don't think it's a pure grid martingale, because sometimes it goes long and sometimes it goes short. So when we actually run this for a week, we'll have a better idea, but there's some sort of grid and some sort of averaging in position. He's also a nice guy. He is claiming that there's AI being used here, which I'm personally quite skeptical of. I think it's just some sort of recovery system, which is a high-risk martingale strategy as well. I don't think there's any sort of real AI going on because, frankly, he probably wouldn't give that away for free. And at the same time, we can see that because it is using some sort of buys and sells, it's not a traditional grid martingale, it's more of a hedging style system. So hedging meaning it takes bidirectional positions with an increasing lot size. So neat too. It's worth testing out and kind of contrasting it with the first bot, which is our more like vanilla grid martingale, more of a bidirectional hedging, not grid martingale, but kind of martingale-esque style bot. So very interesting. And now we can move over to bot number 3, and as the name would suggest, this is most likely a hedging martingale style system. And this is by Mr. Furkan, who's a good guy. I've also emailed back and forth with him, and very smart fellow. He really cares about his clients, and I think this is just his basic freer bot. This one is a grid martingale too, but it actually runs on gold, which is interesting enough. So usually gold grid martingales are pretty high risk. Once again, nothing necessarily wrong with that as long as you're mindful of it and you know how to put in the right protections. So I believe here he does have some risk limitations in there too. But what he's saying is that this is his kind of his free bot, and I'm not so sure. I don't think he uses a grid. What he does, at least from my understanding from some of his other systems, is that he puts the entry of the second position at the stop loss of the first position. So imagine we go short, and instead of price going down, it goes up, and we hit the stop loss. Quite often he has a second position there, which will then open up with an increased lot size. So it's a different type of recovery system too. So instead of having like buy, it has buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. Also can work. The danger with this style of system is if your trade kind of permutations are different. So if you run this through a Monte Carlo, you can have some nasty results. But yet again, this guy's a good developer, so maybe he's put some interesting thoughts to that too. So curious to see what's going on here as well too. And so far the feedback from clients has been very positive. So could be interesting to test. Now finally, so these are all the martingales, grid recovery, hedging style bots. Developers love making these because it keeps your clients generally quite happy. Because the thing about this style of system is that it just prints cash until it blows up. It's not like my bots, for instance, they lose 50% of the time, but you have a high risk reward. And you need to work with clients who understand that that's trading. It's part of trading. If you want to, especially have high risk reward, you have to cut your losers fast. But particularly if you go with a less sophisticated client base, people prefer to just always win. And it's easy to sell kind of martingale-esque bots just because people don't really have to face a loss until it's a big loss. But these are all free bots anyway, so the guys aren't trying to sell anything. It's just easy to kind of build goodwill by giving away a bot of this style. So it's an interesting observation on kind of the state of the industry. So now we can go over here into the range breakout EA. This is a very good like vanilla opening range breakout style bot, but he's trading it specifically on the euro dollar, which I thought was really interesting because I personally have made bots like this on indices, but the euro dollar I have yet to do so successfully. So I believe he's just doing a very simple placing pending orders at highs and lows of a session, and then effectively waiting for the break of those levels and then holding until end of day. So very classic tried and tested strategy. If this works, it could be a really great bot, and I could even see people using this as part of a broader portfolio. So pretty interesting indeed. As you can see here, guys, like this is not a martingale equity curve. So we have like ups, we have downs, we have drawdowns, but it's very normal. It's a very like average style of equity curve. And this is what you would typically see with a non-recovery equity curve. Like let's say, for instance, we go here, like this straight line is usually what you would see with more of a recovery style equity curve. And it's the same thing here with the dark Venus. Like if you have any of these like straight lines, but with equity detachments, that typically means there's some degree of recovery happening. Whereas if you have something which is like kind of a real equity curve, as I like to call them, where you have dips and you have ups, you have downs, that's usually a non-recovery one. So anyway, this is kind of a nice final one because it's a bit of a different style. So we have three different types, but different types of recovery, and we have one non-recovery. So it should give us a really good kind of view of different styles of bots, and it should be useful for you guys as the viewer because you can then assess at the end of our experiment here which one best suits your trading style. And then for the final one, an absolute shameless plug of our EA, which is also free, so might as well download that one. And we are going to be running our opening range breakout on the US 30. So this is a classic opening range breakout. It works on gold, it works on the DAX, and it works on US 30. And the US 30 one is an absolute banger. It works super well. We've been running it here for I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and I had prior versions before this, and here I'm running it with insanely low risk, hence why the percentage, the absolute percentage amounts are quite low, but you could 10x the leverage here, and or not 10x, but you could significantly, yeah, you probably could 10x the leverage and you'd still have a fairly reasonable risk percentage, and it shows a good equity curve given the duration. So this one, our bot, is a opening range breakout. So you place a high at the pre-market high, and you place a you place a buy stop at the pre-market high, and you place a sell stop at the pre-market low, and you trade the explosion from those levels using a tight trailing stop loss. So also kind of a unique take here because we're going to be using something which is an index-based range breakout as opposed to a currency-based range breakout. So it gives us a nice bit of variety. So to kind of summarize, we have the Dark Venus here trading a classic grid martingale, so a buy grid martingale. We have the node neural EA, which is trading some sort of recovery hedging system, also on Eurodollar. We have the hedging martingale trading on gold, but we have it trading specifically on more of like a bi-directional hedging style, but with recovery. So the buy stops out, the sell stops out and is replaced by a buy, and it kind of alternates. I would have to double check that, but that's, from my understanding, a lot of Furkan's style is based on that, which has been very successful for him to date. And he's a very good guy, good developer, so I have no doubt that he's put some thought into this. And then finally, we also, not quite finally, but second to last, we have the range breakout EA, which will be trading on the Eurodollar. And then saving the best for last, we have our expert advisor here, which is trading the opening range breakout on some indices. So what I'm going to do is I have this nice FP Markets account set up. I've already set up the ultimate Timebomb, which is our bot on US 30, but let's put the Dark Venus here on MT5, and let's just press. I'm doing everything with zero changing of any of the settings, just to see what happens. We're going to press OK, and as we can see, it looks pretty good so far. It's not printing anything, but it says loaded successfully, and if you go to the journal tab, and now let's go and do another one here for the hedging martingale. I'll do them in order, just to be on the safe side. Okay, no, here we go. Okay, hedging martingale. Cool, let's try that. We're good to go. And we have a nice display there as well. And now let's put on the node neural EA. Oh, pardon me. Hedging martingale should actually be on gold. Let me remove that actually. Expert list, move. I'll close that bad boy up. Make it XAUUSD. Chart list. So let's put the node neural EA here. Cool, okay. So we have Dark Venus. Ooh, that looks nice and pretty by now. We have hours. Okay, they're not in order. We can reorder them afterwards. Dark Venus, hours, node neural, volume hedge or hedging martingale. Okay, and here we have some risk parameters. And then the final one is going to be the range breakout, also on Eurodollar here. And now what we're going to do is go and check to make sure that the time frames are correct, because I think we will need to adjust the time frames. Here we can see, I believe this is M15. So let's go back to this bad boy here, make it an M15. Good to go. And now we have this one. He doesn't seem to care, so it might be hard-coded. Let's just try and see from the back test perhaps. Nope. Let's do a quick find for M. That's not very helpful. Okay, no, so we're not seeing anything there. I don't think it makes a difference. Here, we're on gold. I'm not so sure if he mentions the time frame. I don't think so. Oh, well, there's an H1 there, so let's assume H1 is fine. Yeah, H1, good to go. Hours is hard-coded, so it doesn't matter. This one here, node, doesn't matter. And let's go back to the range breakout just to double check that bad boy. And range breakout. And it doesn't seem to say, here we have an M15, so let's do it on an M15, just to be on the safe side. And there we go. So now we just have to wait and see, and I will come back in a week to you guys and report on what our results were like. The main thing here is that over 1 week, it doesn't give you a super statistically significant amount of trades, but you can assess if it's trading how it should be trading. So if you look at the strategy which they're talking about, which they are mentioning it's actually executing, and then you run a back test to verify that strategy, and that matches the live results, that's what you need to assess, right? Because in theory, you could run a bot for 6 months to get a really statistically significant amount of trades, but nobody has that kind of time. So you mostly want to see, does it match the back test? And then you can run the back test and say like, okay, this strategy makes sense, and I think there's a long-term edge. So my goal for the next week is to see, does it match the back test? And if it does, I will report back to you guys next week, and we can have an in-depth deep dive on all of these strategies. Because really our goal here is to find the best free expert advisor available to you guys so you can start your algorithmic trading journey. So guys, I'll see you in a week.